So hello, starting with Kant's topic, that is topic from Kant's philosophy. Topic number 33, 32 and 33. These are related to the value of symptoms, or also we call it as a evolutions of symptoms. So prior, actually what is given in philosophy, first we will see the general evolution of symptoms, and after this we will see only the main points from the value of symptoms. So in this, the value of symptoms, that is topic number 32 and 33. In this, Dr. Kent evaluate the symptoms into mainly three categories, that is general, common and particular. But prior to this, we are going to discuss what is mean by evolution of symptoms and how the different authors or pioneers differentiate the symptom into different types. That is the nature of symptoms, what are the nature of symptoms according to them. So in this, first we will see what is the evolution of symptoms. So in this, what we consider, that is homeopathy treats the patient and not the disease. With this sentence, we will start the evolution of symptoms. Why evolution of symptoms is important? As we know that homeopathy treats the patient and not the disease. As to treat the patient, it is important to evaluate the each and every symptom which is present in patient. As we are not giving the medicine on the basis of only disease name, we give the medicine to the patient, or we treat the patient as a whole, and for this reason we have to evaluate each and every symptom. So to study or to treat the patient, we must know about the evaluation of symptoms. So in this, the evaluation of symptoms is the process or act of determining the worth or value of each symptom in a given case. So what is the evaluation of symptom? It is the process or act of determining the worth or the value of each symptom in a given case. Before you have a case, and in that case you have a you have to value that symptom, that is give the value of each symptom. So this is the evaluation of symptoms, and this process we call it as a evaluation of symptoms. So in this, when we take up the case of a patient and we find him narrating a lot of symptoms, some symptoms are added by the attendants or nurses or relatives of the patient and by the observation of the physician. That is, while we are taking the case of a patient, we added the symptoms by, or we find him narrating a lot of symptoms. Some symptoms are added by attendants, nurses, relatives, patients, or the by the observation of the physician. And all these findings taken together form the complete picture of the disease. And when we collect these symptoms, we form the picture of the disease. This case taking is done for two purposes, that is for the diagnostic purpose or for the therapeutic purpose. So what is the purpose of this case taking? It is for the diagnosis of the case and for the therapeutic purpose of the case. And we will see that all the symptoms are not of the same importance. Some of them will be more uncommon, more peculiar, while some other are common to the disease. So in this, well, we're having a lot of symptoms. In this, all the symptoms are not having the same importance. In this, some symptoms are that are uncommon symptoms, more peculiar, and some are common symptoms of the disease. That is, malaise, headache, etc., have their roles in the diagnosis of the disease. That is, each symptom having their importance. Some symptoms are important for the diagnosis of disease, and some symptoms are important which are uncommon peculiar characteristics which are important for the diagnosis of the patient. So in this, the symptoms which are common to the disease have less homeopathic importance in diagnosis than those which differentiate one patient from the other patient. So in these symptoms, the common symptoms to the disease have a less importance in homeopathy, as in diagnosis they are important in diagnosis, but to differentiate one patient from the another patient we have to know the uncommon, peculiar or characteristic symptoms, and these are more, this having more importance according to the homeopathy. For therapeutic purposes we take stock of those symptoms which are uncommon. These symptoms, which helps much in the diagnosis of a disease, are not of much importance in selection of remedy. The uncommon and peculiar symptoms are of greater value. So, in this, the symptoms which are uncommon or peculiar or characteristics, these symptoms having more value in the selection of a remedy. Yes, are you able to listen?
Yes, ma'am.
In between, some call is coming is and my meeting is ended. Huh? We will start again. So we are discussing the evaluation of symptoms, and in this we see that is the importance of the symptoms, that is for the therapeutic purpose we take stock of those symptoms which are uncommon, and the symptoms which help in much in the diagnosis of disease are not of much importance in the selection of remedy. The uncommon and peculiar symptoms are of greater value. So in this, in drug proving too, we will find that there are many symptoms which are uncommon, which are common in many medicines. A remedy is distinguished from others by its peculiar, uncommon, and particular symptoms which are absent in other remedies. So, when in drug proving also, we differentiate the medicines on the basis of symptoms, that is, common symptoms and uncommon symptoms. In short, we can say that symptoms have greater or lesser value whether it be for the diagnosis, for individualization of a patient, or for a individualization of remedy. Therefore, evaluation of symptoms in the study of grading or classifying the symptoms according to its worth in the selection of remedies. The method of evaluation which is followed most widely is that of Kent. So, while we are using the evaluation method, in this there is a evaluation means giving the value to that symptom. It may be a greater value or it may be a lesser value. So in this we differentiate or give the value for the diagnosis of the disease, for the individualization of a patient, and for the individualization of remedy, and therefore evaluation of these symptoms is the study of grading or classifying the symptoms according to its worth in the selection of remedy. So in this, the method of evaluation which is followed most widely is that of Kent. So in this, when we evaluate the symptoms, we give the importance to the method of Kent, that is what Dr. Kent divided or give the value of symptoms. We follow this method of evaluation of symptoms. So in this, the phases of symptomatology, how we do the phases of symptomatology, all of you understanding, we are discussing the evaluation of symptoms. In this we first study about the what is mean by evaluation of symptoms, and in this evaluation of symptoms the evaluation may be for the diagnosis purpose, it may be for the individualization of a patient, or it may be for the individualization of remedy. So in this, what are the phases of symptomatology, that is each symptom has undergo the three phases. This we studied in the drug proving also, that is when we record the symptoms, the symptom has to undergo three phases, that is of recording phase, of confirmation phase, and of verification phase. And this is important to give the gradation to the symptoms, that is to divide the symptoms into different grades. So these three phases are important, that is first phase is recording of symptoms, second phase is confirmation of symptoms, and third phase is verification of symptoms. So in this, what is the recording of symptoms? So in this, recording means during proving the symptoms produced by the drugs are recorded carefully. That is, recording means we give the drug to the patient and we record the symptoms which are coming in that prover. So this is the recording of the symptoms, or during proving the symptoms produced by the drugs are recorded carefully. Then the second phase is confirmation. So what is the confirmation? When a symptom is found in all the provers or several provers, the recorded symptoms are confirmed. That is, the recording is done by re-recording or by reconfirmation. So this is the confirmation, that is the symptoms which are coming or found in all the provers or several provers, the recorded symptoms are again confirmed by reproving. So this is confirmation of these symptoms. And third phase is verification. So what is the verification? When a remedy is applied in a patient on the basis of those confirmed symptoms and found to be curative, those symptoms are then verified. That is, this is the verification, means we record the symptoms, then doing his reproving, and after this, when a remedy is applied in a patient on the basis of those confirmed symptoms and found to be curative, that is, when we give this remedy to the sick person and in that sick person we cure the symptoms which are present in a remedy and a patient, the patient's symptoms get cured, those symptoms are then verified. So this is the verification of these symptoms. So these are the different phases of symptomatology, that is recording, confirmation, verification. So in this, they give one example regarding these phases of symptomatology, that is pulsatilla was proved on healthy persons and the symptoms appeared. That is worse in warm room. This symptom was produced in nearly all provers. Thus this symptom was confirmed. That is, first we record the symptom of pulsatilla, that is worse in a warm room. When we found these symptoms in number of provers, we reconfirm this by the reproving. Then there were patients who had this symptom in them and had pulsatilla was applied, it is cured the patients. Thus this symptom was clinically verified. So when we give patients pulsatilla which having the symptoms of worse in a warm room, the patient gets cured. So in this way we verify these symptoms on a sick person. So this is the example of recording, confirmation and verification of phases of symptoms. So in this way we see the phases of symptoms, that is recording, confirmation and verification. So all of you understand these three phases, that is recording, confirmation and verification. This also we studied in a drug proving. Yes, all of you understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we will shift towards the next part, that is the methods of evaluation. First we will see the methods and then we will see what is given in each slide. So methods of evaluation of symptoms. So what are the methods of evaluation of symptoms? In this, the first point is, after the initial interview, the physician will study the record thoughtfully. During this study, inevitably new questions will arise. Meanwhile, the patient also will reflect upon the interview and may wish to clarify a few points. That is, the first point is regarding the case taking. That is, after the initial interview, the physician will study the record thoughtfully. First, he will record the symptoms and he will study the record thoughtfully. So a second interview is held in which more details are covered. The homeopath may again wish to study the case further. This process should continue for as many times as necessary before the physician arrive at a prescription. So in second point or in a second interview is held in which the more details are covered. That is, in this more details are covered, the homeopath may again wish to study the case further. This process should continue for many times as necessary before the physician arrive at a prescription. Then the third point comes, if such great care is taken in case taking, experience and knowledge of remedies will be gained until finally the entire process can take place in a matter of minute for most cases without diminishing the homeopath's confidence in the prescription. So after this, physician do the care in case taking or in experience of and knowledge of remedies will be gained until the final entire process can take place in a matter of minutes for most cases without diminishing the homeopath's confidence in the prescription. Then, bearing in mind that the defense mechanism of body makes itself known to us only through symptoms produced on mental, emotional and physical levels, the prescriber must read and reread the record until the entire case is grasped as a whole. While the major expressions of the defense mechanism should be highlighted, all minor details are to be understood as well. The etiological factors, miasmatic predisposition and the general personality of the patient were to be fully understood. That is, after the case taking, the physician must understand about these things. That is, what is his mental, emotional, physical planes, or he read the record until the entire case is grasped as a whole. Then the major expressions of the defense mechanism should be highlighted. That is, all minor details to be understood as well. In this, he should understand about the etiological factors, miasmatic predisposition and the general personality of the patient. Then the next step is to note down the uncommon symptom in order to their importance. That is, after understanding the proper case, then the next step is to note down the uncommon symptoms in order to their importance. Then common symptoms should be ignored. This listing should not be done merely to satisfy the mechanical procedure, such as listing only those symptoms underlined 3 times or beginning with the main complaints of the patient. Basically, symptoms are ranked according to their intensity, how deeply they reach into the organism, that is mental and emotional symptoms being considered most important and according to their degree of peculiarity. That is, after studying the case properly, after noting the all details, the next important point is to note down the uncommon symptoms and to ignore the common symptoms of a case, as we have to individualize the patient. In that, we have to give the importance to the uncommon peculiar characteristic symptoms, and in this there is no only the mechanical procedure of listing the symptoms. That is, most of the time what is done, that is number of symptoms you have to write down only, but this is not the case. Actually studying the case, actually solving the case, you have to do the careful differentiation between the common and uncommon symptoms, and you have to rewrite the uncommon symptoms in a peculiar way. So basic symptoms are ranked according to their intensity, how deeply they reached into the organism, that is the mental and emotional symptoms being considered most important and according to their degree of peculiarity. Then the next point is, the general symptoms are those which describe the patient as a whole. Usually such symptoms are described in the first person, such as I feel or I am. Thus, Virtually all mental and emotional symptoms are general symptoms. So in this they describe about the general symptoms, that is how these symptoms are recorded. Then there are also physical generals. These refer to physical state which apply to person as a whole. The patient may say, I feel very cold all the time, I cannot tolerate the sun, I am always tired. Even food cravings, aversions are considered physical generals symptoms. I crave sweets, I hate meat, or I am always thirsty for cold drinks. These symptoms represents manifestations of the entire organism and not merely of the stomach. So these symptoms which indicates the person as a whole and which start with I, that is I feel. So this giving the more importance and noting down in the uncommon symptoms. Then sex symptoms are considered next in importance to physical generals. They include such things as sexual desires, sexual satisfaction, and aggravation or amelioration from menses. Such symptoms being related to with their genital organs are listed as local symptoms. The next importance are sleep symptoms, which are general symptoms. They arise out of mental or emotional state, certain hormonal or electromagnetic disturbances, physical restlessness, etc. And such symptoms include the position in which the patient sleeps or finds difficulty in sleeping, or in which disturbing dreams occurs, parts of the body uncovered during sleeplessness, sleepiness, etc. The physical particular symptoms are relatively less significant. Even though such symptoms may be of great intensity, they relate only to a part of an organism. So after recording the general symptoms, you have to record the physical particular which having importance only to the part of an organism. And finally the least significance are the pathological changes. What are the pathological changes that occur in an organism? These have importance for making a prognosis, but they are relatively unimportant for the actual selection of remedy, as these pathological changes or common symptoms of a disease are important for the diagnosis or prognosis of disease, but these are unimportant for the actual selection of remedy. For example, the common problem of a delayed urination in an elderly man with an enlarged prostate gland cannot be used for homeopathic purposes. Constipation resulting from rectal cancer is usually useless. There are utilizing symptoms associated with it. Similarly, severe dyspnea resulting from an enlarged thyroid gland cannot point out to a remedy in the absence of individualizing characteristics. But these symptoms may have importance when they are having a utilizing characteristic with them. So we have to record these symptoms in this manner. So in this, in short, they explain about the method of evaluation of symptoms, that is how you have to record the case, how you have to differentiate between the common and uncommon symptoms, then how to record the symptoms, that is general symptoms, that is importance given to first mental generals, then physical generals, then regarding the sleep, then menses, then sex. Then you have to record the particular symptoms. These are related to particular part of body. And lastly, you have to give importance to the common symptoms if they are coming with individualizing characteristics. So in this way you have to do the evaluation of symptoms. So this is the method of evaluation of symptoms. So after this, the method of evaluation of symptoms, there are methods of evaluation. Up till now we study the method of evaluation of symptoms, how the process is going on, but there are different methods of evaluation, that is different pioneers of homeopathy gives the different methods of evaluation. So in this mainly the four methods are described, that is Kantanian method, Hahnemannian method, then Borik's methods and Bonning-Hussein's methods. So all of you know about these methods, but we will revise these methods again. So first, this is the general part of evaluation of symptoms, and this is for the studying the Kent's topic, that is topic number 32 and 33. This is based on this evaluation of symptoms, and Dr. Kent gives them as a value of symptoms, value of symptoms 1 and value of symptoms 2 in topic number 32 and 33 in Kent's philosophy. So prior studying this topic, you must know about the general evaluation of symptoms. So we are taking this part as a evaluation of symptoms. So first we will see what is given in these different slides. That is, homeopathy is based on individualization of a patient as well as of the drug. That is what homeopathy is based on, that is individualization of the patient as well as of the drug. That is, every individual is characterized by some unique features which serve to differentiate that particular individual from other individual belonging to the same class or a group. So we have to differentiate one person from the other person, and what are the different peculiarities that are present in one person that differentiate this one person from the other person. So that we call it as a individualization, the process of individualization. Then what are the different highlights of this evaluation of symptoms? In this we are going to discuss what is the evaluation of symptoms, then its philosophical background, then its significance, and then different methods of evaluation. So in this, starting with evaluation of symptoms, first, what is mean by evaluation of symptoms? In this they explain the definition of evaluation of symptom. And what is the definition of evaluation of symptom? Evaluation of symptom denotes the principle of grading the different types of symptoms according to their value in order to priority, with a definite purpose of forming an individual picture of the patient which is to be matched with a drug symptom in order to select a homeopathic remedy suitable for the cure of the patient. So first you have to understand the definition. What is given in definition, that is evaluation of symptom, what it denotes? It denotes the principle of grading the different types of symptoms. Means you have to give the grading to that different types of symptoms. In your hand there are number of symptoms, and you have to give the grading to that symptoms. That is principle of grading the different types of symptoms according to their value. But how you have to give the grade? According to their value, with definite purpose of forming an individual picture of the patient. This value is depend upon, with a definite purpose of forming an individual picture of the patient. This value is depend upon, you have to form the picture of that patient, that is individual picture of a patient which is to be matched with drug symptoms, and that picture of a patient can be matched with a drug symptoms in order to select the homeopathic remedy suitable for the cure of the patient. And what is the purpose of this? You have to select the homeopathic remedy which is suitable for the patient to cure the patient. So this is the definition of evaluation of symptom. That is, it denotes the principle of grading the different types of symptoms according to their value, with a definite purpose of forming an individual picture of the patient which is to be matched with a drug symptom in order to select a homeopathic remedy suitable for the cure of the patient. So all of you understand the definition of evaluation of symptoms? You have to understand and not the mug up or memorize. Not only memorize, you have to understand properly. Then there is no need of memorizing only. Understand the definition. Give some response.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we will see what is explaining about evaluation of symptom, that is aphorism number 6. In every individual disease, the change in the health of a body and mind, the morbid phenomena, accidents, symptoms can be pursued externally by means of senses as signs and symptoms. That is, the deviation from the former healthy state are felt by the patient himself. Subjective symptoms remarked by those around him and observed by the physician, that is objective symptoms. And all these perceptile signs and symptoms represent the disease in its whole extent, that is, together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the disease. That is, in aphorism number 6, we know that the physician must be an unprejudiced observer. But what is the reason that he must be an unprejudiced observer? This is explaining in this, that is, in every individual disease, the changes in the health of a body and mind. That is, in every individual disease, there occurs changes in a health of mind and body, and this may be due to the different morbid phenomena, due to different accident or symptoms, and that can be pursued externally by means of a senses of signs and symptoms. And how we know that there is a changes in a health, that can be pursued externally by different signs and symptoms, that is, the deviation from the former healthy state are felt by the patient himself, that is subjective symptom and objective symptom. And all these perceptile signs and symptoms represent the disease in its whole extent, that is, together they form the true and the only conceivable portrait of the disease. Then what is the totality of symptoms? That is, this is outwardly reflected picture of internal essence of the disease, that is, the affection of a vital force must be the principal or the sole means whereby the disease make known what the remedy it requires. So in this, in aphorism number 7, they explain about the totality of symptoms, that is, what is the totality. Yes, can I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are discussing the evaluation of symptoms. In this, the point that we discussed, that is about the totality of symptoms. So in this, the totality must be the principle, indeed the only thing the physician has to take note of in every case of disease, and to remove by means of his art, in order that it shall be cured and transferred into health. So what is the totality? Must be the principle, indeed the only thing the physician has to take note of in every case of disease, and to remove by means of his art, in order that it shall be cured and transferred into health. That is, the totality of symptoms must be cured or it transferred into the health. So this is the principle, it indeed, of the totality of symptoms. So by the totality of symptoms, Dr. Hahnemann means neither the arithmetic sum nor the conceptual whole covering the generalized aspects of symptoms, but some sort of intuitive grasp of the symptoms in their integrity. So in this, according to Dr. Hahnemann, that is, totality of symptoms means neither the arithmetic sum nor the conceptual whole covering the generalized aspects of symptoms. That is what Dr. Hahnemann say about the totality of symptoms. It is not only the arithmetic means only the sum of the symptoms is not the totality. The totality must have that importance that it forms the portrait of a disease or a portrait of patient, and that portrait of patient must be matched with a portrait of medicine. That is actually what we done in a practical or in a clinic. That is the sum of the symptoms, only the sum of the symptoms. What you are doing is not the actually the totality of symptoms. Only collection of symptoms is not the totality, but that totality must have that much importance that it can form the portrait of a patient, and that portrait of a patient can be matched with a portrait of medicine. So this is the importance of totality of symptoms. That is, but some sort of intuitive grasp of the symptoms in their integrity. That is, that that symptoms must have that importance or that grasping of their integrity. So that we call it as a totality of symptoms, according to Dr. Hahnemann. Actually, most of the times, most of the physician what done, they do the sum of the symptoms, but only the sum of the symptoms is not important. While selecting the symptom for totality, it is important which symptoms you are selected for the totality of symptoms is important. Only collection or arithmetic mean or a sum of symptoms means not a totality of symptoms. Totality of symptoms must be that symptoms, that symptom having that peculiarity, that characteristic, that uncommon symptoms that covers the or that helps in the forming with the portrait of a patient, and that portrait of patient must be matched with a portrait of medicine. So in this way you have to do the totality of symptoms. As you know, after the totality you analyze the symptoms or you give the evaluation of symptoms. That is, after this you evaluate the symptoms. For this reason you must form the actual totality of symptoms. Then the next point is regarding the knowledge of external world is acquired by perception and conceptions. That is, knowledge of external world, what is present in external world, that can be acquired by perception and conception. In this, perception makes the external world known to us through our senses. That is the perception. That is, makes the external world known to us through our senses. What our senses gives the image of external world, that is the perception. And what is the conceptions? Makes the external world understandable or intelligible to us, that we call it as a conception. Means according to our senses what we understand, that is, or what we see, that is the perception. but makes the external world understandable. That is the conception. Means when we understand that external word, that we call it as a conception, and it is concerned with the formulation of concepts after different mental processes of comparison, abstraction, generalization, and naming. And what is the importance of this? It is concerned with the formulation of concepts after different mental processes of comparison, abstractions, generalization, and naming. And what is its importance? It is important for the evaluation of symptoms. That is, before evaluating the symptoms, you must have a proper knowledge about the perception and conception, or your concept of perception and conception, or your actually perception and conception is normal to evaluate the symptoms. That is, you must have a proper senses, and you must have that intelligence or understanding that you have to do the conception, that is perception and conception. And all these processes come through the comparison, that is the different mental processes of comparison, abstraction, generalization, and naming. And after this you can do the proper evaluation of symptoms. Then we have to develop a faculty of integral knowledge in which perception and conception are held together in an indivisible totality or a whole. So what is the importance of this perception and conception? To held together an indivisible totality or a whole. This intuitive perceptual faculty at a higher level does not come by itself, but this intuitive perceptual faculty at a higher level does not come by itself. Means it is not come by itself. You have that proper knowledge, you have that power of conception and perception. After this you can make the differentiate between the symptoms, and you can evaluate these symptoms. Then knowledge proceeds from perception, gets systematized and clarified through conception by process of analysis, and finally gets synthesized through this, the intuitive faculty to fit the particulars in the general setting. So this knowledge proceeds from perception, gets systematized and clarified through the conception. That is, first you do the perception, means you see the external world with your senses, means you see what the symptoms are present, you see or you recognize with your senses. And after this you get systematized and clarified through the conception by the process of analysis. And after knowing these symptoms, you get systematized and clarified through conception, means by the process of conception you can differentiate these symptoms by the process of analysis. That you differentiate as these are the mental symptoms, these are the physical symptoms, these are the particular symptoms, or these are the common symptoms, or these are the uncommon symptoms. This classification can be done with the help of conception, and finally synthesized through this intuitive faculty to fit the particulars in the general setting. And with the help of this intuitive faculty, means your knowledge, your intelligence, you can differentiate this into different, fit the particulars in the general setting. So this is the process of doing the perception and conception. As a, you have to first understand the symptom, then you systematized or clarified these symptoms in different types according to the process of analysis, and then you get the all knowledge about these symptoms. Then sense perception without conception is blind, and conception without perception is empty. So what it explained? Sense perception without conception is a blind, and conception without perception is empty. Now what is the sense perception without conception is blind? Means only the sense of perception, only knowing the symptoms without the conception, without the understanding of these symptoms, it is only a blind process. That is, you only see the senses, or you only recognize these are the symptoms, but without the understanding of these symptoms, that is without the conception, it is only a blind process. And conception without perception is empty, means you only know the types of symptoms, you can understand the symptoms, but you cannot pursue, that is what are the symptoms that cannot be pursued by you, then the conception without perception is empty. Only you know or you understand, but you don't know what to understand. So this is the empty process. That is, first you have to make the sense, you have to know the symptoms, and after knowing the symptoms you can differentiate them. So these two processes are important, that is you must know the perception and you know the conceptions. So all of you understanding the perception and conception? Yes? And why they are given here? All of you understanding? Parikshit? Yes, Parikshit. अभिषेक.
हा बोला ना मॅम.
कळतंय का परसेप्शन आणि कन्सेप्शन का दिले त्यांनी इथे?
एकदा सांगा ना मॅम.
या दोन कन्सेप्ट त्यांनी सांगितल्या, परसेप्शन आणि कन्सेप्शन. तर परसेप्शन म्हणजे काय की आपण सेन्स करतो, एक्सटर्नली जे काही दिसतंय आपल्याला, जे काही घडतंय, तर त्याचं काय करतो आपण, सेन्स करतो, म्हणजे ते आपल्याला कळतं. आता समजा समोर पेशंट आहे आणि त्याच्यामध्ये सिम्पटम प्रेझेंट आहेत, तो आपले सिम्पटम सांगतोय, तर ते सिम्पटम आपण काय करतोय, सेन्स करतो, म्हणजे नोट डाऊन करतो थोडक्यात. तर ते झालं आपलं परसेप्शन. आणि कन्सेप्शन म्हणजे काय करतो आपण, की आता जे काही सिम्पटम आपल्याकडे अवेलेबल आहेत त्याला वेगवेगळ्या याच्यामध्ये कसं डिफरन्शिएट करायचं, आपण कसं त्याला ॲनालिसिस करणार त्या सिम्पटमचं, म्हणजे ते अंडरस्टँड करणार. सिम्पटम जे काही सिम्पटम आहेत त्याला आपण प्रॉपर अंडरस्टँडिंग करणार आपल्या इंटेलिजन्सनी, तर त्याला काय म्हणतो आपण, कन्सेप्शन. तर मग परसेप्शन आणि कन्सेप्शन ह्याच्याबद्दल त्यांनी मग इथं दोन वाक्य दिली की सेन्स परसेप्शन विदाउट कन्सेप्शन इज ब्लाइंड, म्हणजे फक्त परसेप्शन करणं आणि त्याच्यामध्ये कन्सेप्शन नाही आहे. फक्त सिम्पटम आपल्याला माहीत होणं, पण आपण त्याला डिफरन्शिएट करू नाही शकणार, आपण त्याला अंडरस्टँड करू नाही शकणार, तर ती प्रोसेस कशी आहे, मग ब्लाइंड आहे. त्याला मग काही व्हिज्युअलायझेशन नाही राहणार आहे, ती कशी असणार आहे, ब्लाइंड असणार आहे. आणि सेकंड वाक्य काय दिलं त्यांनी, कन्सेप्शन विदाउट परसेप्शन इज एम्प्टी, म्हणजे आपल्याला प्रॉपर अंडरस्टँडिंग आहे, आपल्याला नॉलेज आहे, पण आपण ते परस्यूज केले नाही, पेशंटकडून ते नोट डाऊनच केले नाही, आपल्याला ते कळालेच नाही, आपल्याला ते दिसलेच नाही, तर ती प्रोसेस कशी असणार आहे, एम्प्टी असणार आहे. कारण की आपण त्याच्याकडून काही घेतलंच नाही आहे. आपल्याला भले नॉलेज आहे, आपल्याला इंटेलिजन्स आहे, पण पुढून काही नाहीच आहे, तर आपण डिफरन्शिएट काय करणार आहेत, ॲनालाइज काय करणार आहेत, तर त्या कंडिशनमध्ये ती प्रोसेस कशी असणार आहे, एम्प्टी असणार आहे. तर दॅट इज द टू सेंटेन्सेस गिवन फॉर द इव्हॅल्युएशन ऑफ सिम्पटम. आणि हे सगळं कशासाठी दिले त्यांनी, इव्हॅल्युएशन ऑफ सिम्पटमसाठी. कारण इव्हॅल्युएशन ऑफ सिम्पटम जर करायचं असेल तर तुम्हाला काय पाहिजे, परसेप्शन पण पाहिजे आणि कन्सेप्शन पण पाहिजे. कळालं? ओके. सो हनीमन फाउंड आउट दिस टेक्निक. येस सोनल, आय एम नॉट हिअरिंग यू. आवाज येत नाही, आवाज येत नाहीये. काही डिफिकल्टी असेल तर मेसेज कर मला नंतर.
येस मॅम.
डिफिकल्टी आहे का काही? ओके ओके. So Hahnemann found out this technique, which involves a novel method of observation of the patient, whereby he noted the general aspects as well as the particular aspects in the settings of the generals, which characterized the uniqueness of the individual. So याच्यासाठी काय केलं, डॉक्टर हनीमन फाउंड आउट दिस टेक्निक which involves the novel method of observation of the patient. मग त्याच्यामुळं काय केलं त्यांनी, ऑब्झर्वेशन ऑफ द पेशंट इज नोटेड द जनरल aspects as well as the particular aspects in setting of the generals which characterize the uniqueness of the individual. मग त्याच्यासाठी डॉक्टर हनीमनने काय केली, टेक्निक डेव्हलप केली कशाची, ऑब्झर्वेशन ऑफ द पेशंट, आणि त्याच्यानुसार मग काय केलं, डिफरन्शिएशन ऑफ सिम्टम्स. वी परस्यू द sensorial, functional and the organic symptoms of the deceased individual through our senses, and then these sense data are generalized and the same time particularized or individualized with reference to origin, character, location, progress or direction and its condition. And such an integration of percepts and concepts is implied by the notion of the totality of symptoms. आणि त्याच्यासाठी मग काय केलं, जे काही ऑब्झर्वेशनची मेथड होती डिफरन्शिएशन किंवा वी परस्यू दिस सेन्सोरियल, फंक्शनल, ऑर्गॅनिक सिम्टम्स ऑफ द डिसीज्ड इंडिव्हिज्युअल. मग त्याच्यासाठी त्यांनी काय केलं की जे काही फिजिशियनचे सेन्सेस आहेत ते डेव्हलप करायला पाहिजे की जेणेकरून तो काय करू शकतो की जे काही सिम्टम्स आहेत ते डिफरंट पार्टमध्ये तो काय करेल, डिवाइड करेल. अँड सच अँड इंटिग्रेशन ऑफ परसेप्ट्स अँड कन्सेप्ट्स इज एम्प्लॉइड by the notion of the totality of symptoms. आणि त्याच्यावरनं काय करू आपण, form the totality of symptoms. Thus homeopaths identified a diseased individual by sorting his symptoms into generals and particulars, and then by attempting to realize the integration of particular with the common symptoms after placing them in the frame of work of generals. मग त्याच्यानंतर जे काय क्लासिफिकेशन केलं जनरल्स आणि पर्टिक्युलर. जनरल्स मीन्स दॅट इंडिकेट्स ॲज अ होल अँड पर्टिक्युलर्स मीन्स दॅट इंडिकेट्स द पर्टिक्युलर पार्ट ऑफ बॉडी. आणि त्याच्यामध्ये परत त्यांनी पर्टिक्युलर सिम्टम्स विथ द कॉमन सिम्टम्स आफ्टर प्लेसिंग देम इन द फ्रेम वर्क ऑफ जनरल्स. मग त्याच्यानुसार त्यांनी काय केलं, डिफरन्शिएशन ऑफ सिम्टम्स. अँड thus the totality of symptoms implies not merely a numerical aggregate of all the symptoms but relates to the synthetic comprehension of a concrete individual picture of the patient through logical combination of general, particular and distinctive or individualizing particular symptoms as manifested by the patient. मग त्याच्यानुसार जे काही टोटॅलिटी झाली, मग ती टोटॅलिटी फक्त इट इज नॉट अ सम ऑफ सिम्टम्स but it is a totality of symptoms, implies not merely a numerical aggregate of all the symptoms but it relates to the synthetic comprehensive of a concrete individual picture of the patient. म्हणजे काय आपण टोटॅलिटी फॉर्म करतो ती कशी असणार, एकदम सिंथेटिक कॉम्प्रिहेन्शन ऑफ अ कॉन्क्रीट इंडिव्हिज्युअल. म्हणजे जसं आपण एक कॉन्क्रीट बिल्डिंग फॉर्म करतो तसं एक कॉन्क्रीट इंडिव्हिज्युअल पिक्चर आपण पेशंटचं फॉर्म करतो थ्रू अ लॉजिकल कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ जनरल, पर्टिक्युलर अँड डिस्टिंक्टिव्ह सिम्टम्स. आणि ते कशावरती डिपेंड असतं, कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ जनरल, पर्टिक्युलर अँड डिस्टिंक्टिव्ह इंडिव्हिज्युअलायझिंग पर्टिक्युलर सिम्टम्स ॲज मॅनिफेस्टेड बाय द पेशंट. अँड इन every diseased condition, symptoms referring to particular nosological types, that is determination referring to particular tissues and organs of an affected organs, that is individualization. So referring to the individualization of the patient which modify the signs and symptoms of the disease he is suffering from individual diagnosis. So in this the importance is given for the individualization of a patient. So in this the complete diagnosis or a disease diagnosis or a diagnosis of a person. So in this what is the importance of this complete diagnosis, that is it may be for the disease diagnosis, it may be diagnosis of a person or a constitutional individuality. So in this way they differentiate the symptoms into different categories. And what is the importance of this disease diagnosis of the person or a constitutional individuality, we will see in next class. And we will see what are the different methods that told by different pioneers of evaluation of symptoms in tomorrow's class. So up till now all of you understand or any difficulty regarding what we studied in today's class? Yes, up till now all of you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Up till now we studied the definition of evaluation of symptoms and philosophical background of evaluation of symptoms. What is the philosophical background? That is this perception, conception, totality of symptoms, individualization. This is all the philosophical background. And after this the next point is the methods of evaluation. In this the different methods, that is Kantian, Hahnemannian, Boric and Bonning-Hussein's methods are explained. So in this way we finish these 2 points, that is definition and the philosophical background of evaluation of symptoms. So I think it is enough for today. Next part we will discuss in tomorrow's class. So we will stop here. Siddhi, please send me the attendance.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we will stop here. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.